looking at adding telemetry to the SP Racing board, and also how to hook it up to the X4R and how to send it back down to the Taranis. Also, we're going to be adding in the FPV gear. The FPV gear includes a camera up here on the front and a video transmitter here in the back. Just to give you a quick summary if you don't want to watch the whole thing. Basically, you're going to have to move your receiver from up here at the top where we placed it in the first video to down at the bottom. And it needs to slide in underneath the power distribution board as much as you can get it. And I tried to get it so that this part back here, there we go, was kind of lined up. That way there's nothing sticking off the back end of it there. Another thing that would also help a lot is in the video, I solder the camera directly to the power distribution board, which that works as long as the camera can do it. A more safe thing to do is to solder the 12 volt output or the camera to your 12 volt output on the power distribution board. That way if there's any spikes or anything from the ESCs, that 12 volt reducer inside there will protect the camera from getting those high power spikes. However, if you have a camera that can, support up to 22 volts or whatever, something in the 20s, you probably don't need to worry about that, and you hook it right up to the power distribution board. Also, one other thing, on here, those ESC pins right there, all those pins, they take up a lot of room. So if you have good soldering skills, you could solder your ESCs directly to the flight board, and you'd save a lot of room inside there, and your flight board or your video transmitter here would be, you could use a bigger one if you wanted to. This one in there, let me see if I can get it on the screen. It's kind of tight and it's kind of sticking down, but I'm gonna put another zip tie on it to hold it up out of the way because I don't want to short down to those pins because that would just be bad if anything shorted inside there. Anyway, the video coming up, it's kind of long and it has a lot of detail, and hopefully it's helpful to a lot of people. And like I said in the other, earlier or later, I can't remember when it was, if you like this kind of video, make sure you hit the like button because I kind of judge what videos I'm going to make based on the previous videos and all the likes that they got. Anyway, FPV equipment and telemetry. Here we go. Sit back, get some popcorn because it's pretty long. This X210 quadcopter has been a blast flying line of sight. These motors, being that they're 2600 kV, are extremely powerful. The 4mm main plate makes it near impossible to break. The only thing I'd recommend if you're just learning to fly, don't use your favorite colored propellers. You kind of get this rainbow pack. Use the color of propellers you don't like first because you're going to break the propellers. I had black ones on the back and it looked really cool until I crashed, and then now it has these yellow ones. Oh well. Anyway, today what we're going to do is we're going to be adding telemetry, and we're using an X4R SB on here and a Taranis receiver. If you have a Spektrum transmitter, I don't know. If you have any other transmitter, I don't know how to do it. This is for the Taranis. Also, we're going to be adding in a video transmitter and a camera to do the FPV stuff. Now, there's basically two options you can get when you start looking at cameras. You can get a CMOS camera. Those are generally cheaper. Here's one it looks. This is the same shape as an HS1177, but these are generally cheaper, and but they don't have quite as vibrant of colors as most CCD cameras, which is the other option. CCD cameras tend to look a little better. The picture looks a little better, especially at dusk and dawn. They can see a lot better. They also handle light changes a little bit better than CMOS cameras, from my experience. Someone will probably disagree, but that's kind of what I think. I've been using these CMOS cameras, and I've been using it on this quadcopter, and it works fine. I can see gates and trees and stuff. And but for this build, I'm going to be using a Foxeer camera. This is a CCD camera, and this one should have a little bit better picture quality to it. But this one actually costs a lot more. The CMOS one is like $12, and this one's like $30. But this is a Foxeer one, so we'll see how this goes. I'll show a little bit of comparison between the two cameras later, if I remember to add that in here. Also, for this video, or most of the time, I've been using these ET200 video transmitters. Look like this. Little box looks like this. And let's see if I can get it out. Looks like this, and these have been working real well for me. I like these because they're small and they have a little LED on the back for each channel that you're on, and then a button to change it over here on the side. To get the telemetry information from the flight board back to the X4R SB, you have to find your cable that came with it, and it looks like this. And you want to pull out all the wires except for the yellow wire. You can see there I kind of jerked that wire out, and the little metal piece stayed in. That's okay. The other ones, I lifted up the little plastic pieces and slid those out. And I cut it about this long, and stripped off a little bit, and I'm going to tin this up. And this is going to go in the X4R SB. Your SP racing board should have came with a little cable that looked like this, and it had 4 wires in it, and I pulled out all of them except for the green one. The black, red, and yellow, I believe, are the ones I pulled out. So, and I cut it off about, I don't know, however long this is, just long enough that we're going to run it. This is going to plug in right here beside the USB port, and this is going to be UART2, and it's going to come around here to the back and up to the receiver. So I kind of try to make this wire plus this wire as long as the wires that are going to the receiver already, so it'll all be about the same length. So it's pretty close. So I'm going to go ahead and solder these 2 wires together, and this is where the flight board is going to send telemetry out of this wire into the X4R SB to have it sent back down to the Taranis. So to get started, we're going to go ahead and pull this top off, and we're going to disconnect all these flight board ESC wires. Hopefully you marked all these so that you can tell where they all go without having to retrace all of them. But when we get these off, and then we're going to solder on that telemetry wire. Okay, there we go. There I have those 2 wires soldered together. Got this little piece of shrink wrap that I'm going to put over this and shrink it, and then we should be good to start hooking this up. So this wire should plug in right here next to the USB port. I'm going to go ahead and plug it in, and there we go. And that's UART2. Then I'm going to take this wire, other end of this wire, and I'm going to plug it into the X4R SB. I did have to cut out a little bit of my shrink wrap here so that it would fit. I didn't think anybody would want to see that because it wasn't that awesome. And then we'll just slide this into here, and we should be good to go for telemetry hardware configuration. So here in Betaflight, we need to make a couple more changes for the telemetry. First thing we need to do is come up here and click on ports, and over here on UART2, which is the second one, we want to change this telemetry setting to smart port. And after you have that done, go ahead and come down here and click save and reboot. Then up here in the corner, it should say ready again, and we're done with this page. Then we're going to go over to the configuration tab and scroll all the way down. We want to find the telemetry setting, which is right here. And we want to go ahead and turn that telemetry on, and then go ahead and hit save and reboot. And there we go. And that should be all the configuration we need to do in here to turn on telemetry. When you go to install this camera, the best thing to do is to install the camera between these 2 side plates. Put these in there at the same time. And once you have all that assembled, then slide it down through the top of this, because if you put these screws in to hold the camera in, then you won't be able to get it through this top plate. So like I said, put this together, slide it through, and lastly put in these screws into the sides of the camera. The next thing to do is to get power fed into the ET200R. What I did is I cut this power wire off, and I cut it about 7 centimeters or so, something like that. 7 centimeters, and this is going to solder directly to the power distribution board. So to get to the power distribution board, you have to take apart the quadcopter again and get this flight board out of the way. And the VBAT wires are soldered into these 2 pads here on the left. So I'm going to actually solder into those same 2 pads again so that it can feed power off of these to the ET200. And there's nothing wrong with having 2 of them on there. It might just be a little bit difficult getting them soldered on, because when you get it wet, they might both want to come off, but that's okay, I'll deal with that. So I got these wires soldered on. There's the VBAT wires coming off the back, and then these 2 wires that kind of come up this way are for the video transmitter, because they're going to run up here and then out the side of the power distribution board and turn and come back up, so the receiver can sit like this up on the top. So to clean up some of these wires, I took the ESCs that are on the front and I ran the wires down under the flight board across back like this. And then I took the ESCs that are back here, the wires, and I ran them up here, and I U-turned them back so they all come out the back now. And then it's a matter of trying to get all these wires laid down in here flat enough that the flight board can lay on top of it and get down to the spacers without pinching any of the wires. You absolutely don't want to cause any shorts by pinching the wires too hard. That would be very bad. So let's see if I can get that on there. Nope. We'll try it again. There we go. We're just kind of trying to sandwich it in there and try to get it down to the spacers, like I said, without pinching any of the wires. And that's going to help clean up some of the extra wires we have from the ESC wires. I also took the receiver and I turned it around and pushed the antennas down underneath the power distribution board. They come out right down here underneath the power distribution board so they can kind of pop up like this. And also I did the same thing over here, and the reason to do that is to free up a little bit of room up above so the video transmitter can fit in there. So like I said, this is now facing in. Now if you're doing this, hopefully you've already bound your transmitter and your receiver together, because once you get this in there, it's going to be near impossible to get that out without loosening your antenna wires and doing a little bit of work to get it out of there. Also underneath here I put a little piece of double-sided foam tape to help hold it in place a little bit, and I might try to see if I can get a zip tie in there also to help hold it down, but for now that should be fine. Yep. Then really the whole goal is just to free up some room up above so the video transmitter can fit up there. The ET200 is soldered in place, and I have all the ESC wires back in here, and like I said in the first video, hopefully you marked them so that when you had to put them back on, you knew the order they're supposed to go in. And also, now that you have it all back together, or hopefully you do, or after you do, make sure all your grounds are at the top, because you don't want to have anything backward or bad things may happen. So this is my power wire here on the end, and it's coming off that 5 volts off the power distribution board, and all the other ones are the ESCs. And I leave these 3 pins here separate and open, so that way if I need to add 5 volts, something with 5 volts later, I can, like a transponder, or LEDs or whatever you want that runs off 5 volts that can run off of there. So here I have all the wires tinned up coming off of the video transmitter, and these 3 wires here are the ones I cut off. The 2 on the back are the positive and negative for 5 volts out, and the yellow is the video out. Now you don't want to cut the red and the black because they're already soldered down onto the power distribution board. So here's the little piece that connects into the Foxeer camera, and we're going to solder these wires onto those wires, and I cut them down pretty short because the video transmitter is going to plug the cable back into the video transmitter here, and the top plate's going to slip on like this. But first we need to plug the cable into the camera. Make sure you get it plugged in the right direction. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and twist this thing around one time so the cable inside gets a little bit of turn in it so it doesn't have so much slack. And then I just got to be real careful putting this back on to make sure that it all fits in here. And then I'm going to mount this video transmitter to the upper plate. So apparently this is not getting enough juice from the ET200R to power itself, even though this says it does 5 volts and this says it outputs 5 volts. So I went ahead and I pulled it back apart and I cut off the power and the ground wires, and I'm going to solder these on to the power and ground up here in the front on the power distribution board. It doesn't really matter which power and ground you connect it to, because this camera supports up to 22 volts, so it should be okay if you even use 4S battery directly connected to it. So I'm going to try to get these soldered on again. Here I went ahead and soldered on the battery cable directly to these 2 points on the power distribution board down here below that were accessible, because the camera is supposed to be able to run off up to 22 volts. So we'll go ahead and plug it in, put it all back together, and see if it works. I have the 2 screws in place up here in the front to hold the top plate down, and I'm going to take this piece and put it just like this here so that it's on this close side here where the antenna is. Then we're going to try to zip tie that up to the antenna mounts there and the little zip tie holders. Instead of using the included rubber duck antenna like this, I'm going to be using this DYS antenna. This is a 4-leaf cloverleaf antenna, and it's the kind where when it bends, it holds its position. So if you don't have one of these, this one will work okay. It'll have a harder time penetrating through houses or through other obstacles, where this one will do a little bit better. But I'm going to put this on here and then start zip tying this up to the top plate. And just make sure that if you order one of these, you get the RP SMA if you're using the ET200, because that's what it uses also. So I pushed the video transmitter forward enough that I could get both zip ties in through the zip tie holes. And I ran one this direction, one this direction. I just need to snip those off and the mounting part will be finished. Good. Now I need to take these antenna wires for the control and go ahead and run them up here and attach them back up to the antenna holders here, these little zip ties I had in place from before. I have the top plate back on. I just didn't put this antenna on yet in case I have to take it apart again. But now the camera is running straight off the power distribution board. So if I plug in a 4S battery, there's going to be 14 volts going through the camera. And I don't think the 5 volts coming off of the ET200 was actually enough. So we'll go ahead and we'll try this. Plug this in, make sure nothing smokes. Oh good, it's working. So here's the camera, and it's actually working. That's good. Oh, thank goodness. So good, the camera's working. Oh, good. It was, the voltage coming off there was too low. So it should be all right now. Good. Now the next thing to do is to get this antenna put back up, and it should be ready to test fly. Before we go fly, we need to make sure the Taranis is receiving the telemetry back. So here I'm on the X210 kit, which is the quadcopter I'm working on. Hit the menu button to get into the models, and I'm going to hold down the page button so it goes back one to the telemetry screen here. Now I'm going to come down here to discover new sensors, and then I have to plug in the quadcopter.
Telemetry recovered.
Good, it recovered telemetry. Okay, then I hit enter to discover new sensors, and a whole bunch of them pop up on the screen. And the most important one that we're looking for is the VFAS, and it's 16.4. So good, this is actually reading the voltage telemetry off of the battery now and sending it back down to the transmitter. So that is very good. That means we got the telemetry correct and we got all the settings correct in Betaflight. So now the next thing to do is to set up some low voltage alarms, and then we'll go do some flying. So on this logical switches, this is setting up my low voltage alarm. Now this is for my 4S battery, and you might want to have yours set a little higher or lower depending on how you like it. But basically I said I put the bottom, the voltage has to be greater than 10.5 for the alarm to work. That way when I plug it in and it's 0, it doesn't start immediately saying low voltage. So then up here I said the voltage has to be less than 14.2, and that's where the low voltage will come on. And when the voltage gets below 13.9, that's when the critical alarm will go off. So down here I said, basically I said L1 and L3. So basically it's above 10.5 and below 14.2. And the next one says L2 and L3, and that's the critical, the low and the above 10.5. Then here on the next page, what I did is I put these in here for the low voltage. L4 says play track battery low, and L5 says play track battery critical, and I got it set to repeat every 15 seconds when it's on low and every 4 seconds when it's on critical, because I want it to just nag me to land, so that I will. So that's how I have the low voltage alarm stuff set up in the Taranis, and the only reason it's possible is because the telemetry is set up. So we're gonna fly the X210 kit with the FPV gear today and see how it does. Now one thing to mention on this is, it might be a little difficult to see in the video, but this Foxeer camera has the connector at the bottom of the camera, and so it can't lean down very far without hitting the flight board. This one, however, has this is a cheaper CMOS camera, and it has the connector coming out the top. Well, even on this one, it can lean down a little bit further, but it can't lean down a lot further because basically the board is, the camera itself is hitting the board. So you can see how this X210 kit with the Foxeer camera has a little bit more angle than the other one does. But, you know, that's what you get. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm gonna show you this CCD camera, this Foxeer one, and then we'll take a little look at the cheaper CMOS camera. And that way you can judge for yourself how they look, you know, in comparison to each other.
Stuck on quads, I've got my confidence so high that I feel like I just can't crash. Yeah, let's get to flying. Needing a hobby, and the way I feel now, I guess I'll fly quads till the end. Yeah, I'm on my way. Mighty glad to fly
So like I said, I'll show you some of the differences between the CCD camera and the CMOS camera. This is the CCD camera looking at me. So this is the cheaper CMOS camera, and we'll do the same thing with this. You can see how it looks. We'll see how they come out. We'll see how they come out later in the video when I'm editing it. So that's how you put the telemetry and the FPV gear on this. Hopefully this video is helpful. If it was, hit the like button. And I like it when you push the likes. It makes me know that people actually like these kinds of videos. And if the ones that get a lot of likes are the ones I tend to make more of. Anyway, if you have any questions about this X210 kit, leave them down in the comments. I'll try to help you out as best I can. And as always, thanks for watching.